Hello, Year 9 students. Welcome to another video and another online lesson. Today, we will talk about exploring literary devices, exploring points of view used in text. We have spoken about this when we were together in the classroom. Today, I'm going to explain this once more in a video, and I'm going to ask you to write a couple of things and to focus on the textbooks as well. So please have your textbooks ready, your notebooks ready, your pens ready, because today we're going to go through exploring literary devices together. All right, write the title, off you go. Okay, great. Welcome back. Now, lesson development. I'm going to explain how this lesson will go through. We have done this before, but I want to do it again for those who are not present so that they wouldn't have an excuse and say that I didn't do this. You have the video now and you can go through this every single time. Explanation of learning objectives. I will go through the learning objectives after this slide and I'll explain them one by one so that you understand what is expected from you. Number 2, start activity to test knowledge from previous lessons. In the previous lessons, we have spoken about literary devices, and today we're going to have some crash course about that as well. That's number 2. Number 3, introducing narration styles. I'm going to introduce those styles to you. 2 minutes challenge after that, and then explanation of narration styles. I'm going to explain them in depth, and I'm going to tell you what each and every one of them mean. Homework activity, we will do some homework together, and then plenary activity at the end. So make sure you're ready, you've got your notebooks as well. Don't write this down, let's just go on to the next slide. Now, learning objectives. Now, these you have to write them on the notebook. Number 1, to be able to recall common literary devices. As I said, we're going to talk about the literary devices that we've studied together, and we're going to do that in the starter activity in the next slide. Number 2, to be able to understand what the term point of view means. What do you mean by point of view? Why do we use it? And what is the relationship between point of view and text that we're going to read together this term? 3, to be able to identify the comment on the effect of point of view in a text. So the comments of those point of views and those effects that they have on the listeners or on the readers, on the audience in general. So we will talk about that as well in this lesson. Number 4, to be able to complete a writing piece or a piece of writing from another point of view, from another point of view. Quite important learning objectives. Write them down on the notebooks. Off you go. Great, we'll come back. Now, if you've written this, don't write it again. Do you understand? You've got the PowerPoint with you, but write what I ask you to write because it's very important. Start activity. Let's test on knowledge together. I want you to draw this table in your notebook before filling the missing information. We've got the girl is like a walk-in encyclopedia. Very good sentence. So what is that literary device? I know some of you already have the answer and know the answer. Write it down. I want you to give me a metaphor. My mom makes meals for me every day. My mom makes meals for me every day. What is this literary device? So write it down there. Personification, I want you to give us one. I want you to give us a personification and read the last sentence and tell us what is that literary device as well. Go for it. Off you go. Okay, great. We'll come back. Now, introducing point of view narration style. This is a very important aspect, and when we went into the lesson, I noticed that some of you did not understand what we were talking about and what we meant by point of view or narration styles. When we read short stories, when we read long stories or any text, sometimes we feel that a story is being told, and that story being told is told from a perspective. Sometimes John, who's a character, is telling us a story. Sometimes someone is telling us the story, telling us, the story, narrating the story, but is not part of the story. So we've got narration styles and they are different. We've got the narrator, sometimes that's the one who narrates the story. We've got a first person, that's sometimes who narrates the story, the second person, and we've got the third person as well. This is the point of view. basically. All right, this is what it means. And in point of views, we've got me and I, to understand, as first person. We've got you as second person, and or your, and we've got he, she, they as third person as well. So these are the point of views that we have when it comes to narration style. I want you to write these 4 narration styles down, and when you finish, let's go to the next slide. Off you go. We'll come back. Now, 2 minutes challenge. Let's try to use the previous knowledge, all right, from the previous years, and try to understand and answer these 2 questions. How can you tell who the narrator is in a story? How can you tell? Right? How can you tell? What tells you through the story that this is the narrator? Okay, I want you to answer that question on the notebook. It's very important, okay, that you think a bit about it before you answer. All right, number 2, what does point of view mean to you? Point of view, what does it mean to you? All right, when someone says, oh, I have a point of view, to understand, what does it mean to you? Do you understand? From his point of view, I've got a point of view, he has a point of view. Do you understand? What does that mean to you? All right, challenge yourself a bit and answer these 2 questions is very important. Okay, just think about it, try to understand those questions and answer them. All right, you've got roughly 2 minutes. Off you go. Okay, great. We'll come back. Now, point of view narration style, we're going to explain them even more. This term, we will be looking at the following types of narration style. First person narrator. Okay, the first person narrator will explain that in depth. The second person narrator and the third person narrator. Okay, so these are the 3 narration style that we will go through together. And do you know what each of these mean? We don't know if you do, but I'm going to explain them anyway. So I'm going to explain each and every one of these. So the first person narration style is when the character is describing, to understand what happens in the story from his point of view. So a first person point of view describes the perspective from which the story is told. This tells us that the narrator is a character within the story and is describing the events as they occur to him or her, as they happen to him or her. So we've got a character in our story, and that character's name is, let's say, James, to understand, or John, and James is narrating the story, is telling us the story, and is telling us what's happening to him and to everyone else in the story as well. So this is first person narration. Okay, this is first person narration because John and James is saying, for example, I went to the mall that day, this happened to me, I had an accident, I had a birthday party, to get me. So you've got these, you understand, tells and narrations and stories coming out from James. You understand, him using I, my, me, mine, do you understand? And that's the first person narration. Now, I want you to answer this question. Would you know if something is written from a first-person narrator? So would you know, and how would you know? Understand, if it's used? Understand, if the first-person narrator is used, how would you know that? I want you to challenge yourself once more and answer these questions. It's easy. I just answered it, to be honest, just a second ago. I answered the question instead of you, but I want you to answer it yourselves now. Do you understand? There's something specific that we see in a text, and we can tell if it's first person narrator. There is something specific that you can use as a writer, and it will tell us that it's first person narrator. So what is that thing? How would you know if something is written from first person narrator? Answer that question. Off you go. We'll come back. Now, second person narration style. Now, second person is a point of view where the narrator tells the story to another character using the word you. Now, this is very difficult, and this is a bit challenging even for writers sometimes, right? So the author could be talking to the audience, which we could tell by the use of you are, or your. Okay, now this happens a lot in plays and pieces of theater. Okay, so if you go to the theater and you watch it, or you read the plays, understand, that are written, you will realize that the audience are involved You understand, in so many scenes and in so many times as well. So the author or the playwright, he tries to involve the audience, to understand, and tries to speak to them, to understand, through his characters. He speaks to the audience and he says you and your or you are, to understand, in order to get them involved and to grab their attention, you understand, to make them feel they are part of the story. This is the effect. As I said, every style has an effect on the reader. The first person narration has an effect on the reader. The second person narration has an effect on the reader. And the third person narration has an effect on the reader as well. It's very important. These three narration styles are different. That's why they give different effects on the reader. When you read it, you feel something, all right? And it's different. So the second person narration style is the narration style where you use you, you are, or your. An author may use second person when he, she wants to make the audience more active in the story or process. And this is one of the effects as well. We want the audience to be active in the process of the story. So that's why it is used. So this is a very important style. Try to write this down. Off you go. Hello again. Third person narration style. In a third person point of view, however, the narrator is more distant, okay? The narrator is more distant and he's telling us about the story rather than playing a major part in it. So the third person narrator is the style where the narrator is not part of the story. He's not the first person narrator, it's part of the story. The narrator is part of it. Second person narrator, the audience are part of the story. Now the third person narrator, okay, the narrator is not part of it as well, is distant. You get what I mean? Now try to understand this in different words. Sometimes when you watch a movie, you feel that you know more than the characters themselves. You understand? As an audience, you feel that you know more than the characters. In Superman and Batman, you knew who Superman was. You knew who Batman was. And you knew their real faces, their real characters. Spider-Man, for example. You knew his real face, who he is as a person. Do you understand? But no one, do you understand, amongst the characters knew who he was. But you knew as a viewer, as an audience. You understand? So that's quite important. That's why sometimes in other movies or other stories or other novels, you wouldn't be in a position to know more than the characters. You'll be, to understand, clueless just like the characters. All right, you wouldn't know what's going on and what's happening in the story just like the characters. You wouldn't know who's the bad guy just like the characters. You wouldn't know who's the good guy, who's the hero, who's the protagonist or antagonist just like the characters. You understand? You're as clueless as the characters sometimes, and sometimes you know more than the characters. Some other times characters know more than you understand in other stories. This is very important, and that's why first person, second person, and third person narrator play a very important role in creating our stories. So think of the narrator as somebody who knows all of the thoughts and feelings of the characters in the story. This is the third person narration style. The narrator will make use of words such as he, she, they, or them, okay? And the narrator here will tell you a lot about these people, do you understand, about these characters. So you find yourself in a position where you know more than the audience, than the characters themselves, sorry, or you know as much as the characters know. Understand? So that's very important. So what I want you to write here is third person narration style. The narrator will make use of words such as he, she, they, or them. Write that down. That's a very important point that I want you to write on the notebook. Off you go. Now we'll come back. Plenary activity. Very simple. Read through the text called Playing with Flying Keys on page 37 of your Global English textbook. If you don't have your book with you to understand, don't worry, don't panic, don't cry. Go to the next slide and you'll find the text there. Okay, you'll find the text there. Playing with Flying Keys. You understand? Try to zoom in through the text if you want, because you have the PowerPoint with you, and read it even though it's clear. Okay, read through the text. When you finish reading the text, answer these two questions. Number one, what point of view is being used in the text? Number two, what effect does using this point of view have on the readers? Very important questions. If you understood what I was talking about, you can answer these two questions. All right, now let's move on to the homework activity. But before the homework activity, I want you to answer these two questions. So pause the video and go for it. Off you go. We'll come back. Now let's go to the homework activity. Pretend that you are the writer's mother. Okay, after reading the text, you will understand what I'm talking about. Read through the text one more time before completing the following. Write out 6 to 7 lines from your point of view. Your point of view, okay? Considering the following. How do you feel about your son's achievements? Okay, what will you do to ensure that he fulfills his dreams? 3, include any other information. Okay, I want to see if you are able to use your point of view. Okay, very important. So thanks a lot for watching the video. This is it. This is the last slide. This is the end of the lesson. We will meet face to face and I'll explain this in depth and I'll explain this more to you. If you have written everything, finished everything, that's amazing. You're a great person. If you haven't, then try to do it. Rewatch the video again and keep the video with you as well. So see you in the next slide. See you in the next video. See you in the next lesson. Cheers.